Hi guys, welcome to this new video. In this video, I'll be talking about some virtual properties provided by Mongoose, and also I'll be talking about the middlewares provided by Mongoose. So first, let's talk about the virtual properties. For this, I will be opening up this node model.js file, and in here you can see that we created this schema, and from that schema we created this model. Okay, and before creating the model, we need to utilize this schema variable to actually add some virtual properties. So first of all, what are the virtual properties? When we get something from the DB, when we query something, then all of these properties gets returned. What if we want to return an extra properties from this schema, but we don't want to add those properties over here? Okay, so there can be multiple scenarios that we needs to cover. So but all these properties that we have added here actually available for querying the data, for filtering, sorting, limiting, pagination. And virtual properties does not allow these functions of data manipulation to access its property, the virtual property. Okay, so if we add these properties over here, then it will be accessible to the filtering, sorting and limiting functions. But we want to have a virtual property, so it only returns with the get request but should not be available for all these data manipulations. So I will be writing node schema, and I can write virtual, and in here I need to give it the name of the property. So currently, let's say that I want to return a new property with name, you can say the length of description. Okay, currently it's not convenient and not practical, but this is just for elaboration. So I will be writing description length. Okay, and after that I will call the get function, and get gives us another function. And then here we need to return some data, and whatever we will be returning, let's say that for now we can return anything over here. If I save it, and let's go to Postman, if I send, and let's see what happens. It's waiting. So there is one thing that it's actually uh, timed out. Let's call it, maybe the DB connection was not successful. So currently it has not added that virtual property in the get request. I need to add a new object over here, and I need to give it to JSON virtuals true and to object virtuals true. Okay, now let's save it, and I'm just waiting for DB connection to be successful. So this object with these two props are required to show this virtual property in all the get requests. So if I come here, hit send, and now you can see that this new property is being added in all the objects sent from here. But this property, we cannot use it for other sorting, limiting, pagination functions. Okay, it is not available in the query object that we have been learning in the previous videos. Okay, so let's find out the description. So for the length of the description, I can access all of these properties using this keyword. So I can write this dot, and it gives me all the properties. So we can give description, and then we can add the length, right? And it's not required, we can add any kind of logic inside it, and then return the data. It's up to us. So it's just for elaboration that how to create the virtual property. So our DB connection is successful. Let's go and send, and now you can see that the description length is 16, description length is 36, 18. So this is how we can add the virtual properties, as much virtual properties as we want in our Mongoose schema, right? So next, let's talk about some middlewares. We have been learning middlewares of express routes, but in this video, I'll be talking about the middlewares provided by Mongoose schema. Okay, so there are actually three kinds of middlewares. One is the document middleware and other is the query middleware. So let's first talk about what is document middleware. So again, we will be using the same file for adding some middlewares. This is the doc middleware, and to have that middleware, let's say that document middleware means that whenever we try to create or save any kind of data in the database, so during this process what we want to do in between, so there has to be some kind of middleware that when the query happens to save the data, we might want to manipulate the data in between, or we might want to add some security check in between before it gets saved to the database. And this is very crucial part. So we can write nodes schema and dot pre. Okay, and we can give different words supported by it. So it has already given me a keyword called save, and then we have this function with the value next. Okay, so this is the middleware for document. So this function is going to get triggered in between the document save and before the document gets saved into the database. Okay, after triggering and before saving into the database. So what we want to do in here, we want to first in order to keep it that let's go and we want to approve this data, that okay, we approve this data so it can be saved in the database. We will call the next. We can add if conditions, loops, anything we want inside it. So then we can actually log some data over here, saved. Okay, saving actually is more meaningful. Now let's save, and now I'll be creating a new object of node from the postman, and I'll try to see that if this prints or not. So I'll come here, I will open up the post nodes, and I hope that it is a unique title, and I'll hit send, and it is sent, and it has returned this 18 as well, and it has returned all the properties. And we have been filtering, sorting and ignoring different properties in the get request but not in the post request. That's why it's showing all the properties. So now here you can see that it has shown us this saving string, right? So this is how we can add the middleware. And there is another middleware that what happens after the data is saved. Okay, so we can add it. Let's copy this, and just like pre, we have a post function. Okay, so let's try to perform some logic. So let's say that we have we want to find out the time it took to save the data in the database. So rather than adding the save, I will be adding this dot start date dot now, and here we are storing this variable current date. It's also going to take the time as well. So then we are going to add the query time, the how much time it took to save the data. So we are actually again getting the current time and date using the date.now function minus this dot start which was stored over here. Okay, this actually creates a new variable which is available in all the middlewares that we create over here, and then we can log this query time. Mostly it is used for security purpose. We want to make some checks, add some error handlings before the data is saved, so the data is not used by the hackers. So this is the reason we might want to use these middlewares before saving the data. But let's try to see how much time it takes. I'm going to add a new express to is awesome, and I'm going to send, and let's see how much time it takes. Creating a new to next is not a function. uh, okay, so it's actually, we also need to pass the doc as well, and the next is the second param. Doc is the one which is saved, and we can use this doc to figure out that whether the doc is successfully stored or not, but we are not using it in our code. So let's try to save it and see if it works. And let's come here, and I hope that it was not saved. Let's save. Request is sending. Duplicate key of the request to was saved. Let's try to change the title. And now let's send, and now this new object is saved. Let's go over here. So this much millisecond it took to save the data, 288 milliseconds. So both of these middlewares are working fine, pre and post, and these document middlewares are only used for saving or creating the data. Okay, so this was for the document middleware. Now let's talk about the query middleware. Query middleware is the one that we have already been working in the last 4 or 5 videos, like the find is a query, sorting is a query, a limit, pagination, all these are the queries. So we can apply the different middlewares on that query middleware. So we again wants to have the notes schema, and then it also provides the pre, and let's try to do it with the find requests. Okay, it's for the get. So, and also it gives us this next function, right? And then we need to call the next, and let's try to log finding data. Okay, it is called in between the process of when the query is triggered and until the data is not returned. Okay, so let's try to save it, and now I will be hitting this get nodes query, right? So let's wait for DB connection, and I hope that it's going to get sprinted in this terminal. So let's come here, let's send, and the data is here. And if I go over here, now you can see that it's returning the finding data. So over this middleware of find query is working fine. So this find is working only for find function. There are other functions, query functions we have, like find by ID, find by ID and delete, find by ID and update. So we don't want to add all those keywords and add multiple middlewares for to facilitate all those query objects, query functions actually. So to make this find string dynamic for all the find queries that have the find keyword at start, like find by ID, find all, find and delete. So we can remove this string and we can add slash and then this character, which is above 6 letter, and then find and then this. So it means that apply this query for all the functions that have the string find at start. Okay, so it is now dynamic, and we can add this query middleware anywhere we want based upon the scenario we have in our application, right? So in this video we have talked about virtual properties, document middleware, and some query middleware, right? So thank you so much for watching. That's pretty much it for this video. In the next video I'm planning to cover up some validation techniques in Mongoose to add some new properties on these attributes of this notes schema, right? So don't forget to subscribe my channel. See you in the next video.